Hi and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. This week we are talking all about inferiority complex. Now, do you compare yourself to other people and feel inadequate or a failure in some way? This thinking that you are inferior can become like a heavy anchor which drags you down and affects every part of your life, your relationships, career, health, and happiness. Well, in this teaching, we're going to be looking at what causes us to believe that we are inferior, what is the truth of the matter, and what you can do starting today to shift your mindset and step into your power and potential. Okay, David, so this term, inferiority complex, what does it actually mean in the Wu Wei Wisdom teaching?
Well, it's a complicated term, Alex, and I think if you directly put it into the Wu Wei Wisdom system, we would be talking about CCJ, comparing, criticizing, or being judgmental. And so that makes it much clearer, because when you get into this inferiority complex, these statements, gets very confusing and very hard to clear up. So hopefully today we'll be able to clear it up much easier for you.
So are you saying that someone who suffers from believing they're inferior, they are subjecting themselves to this CCJ, the comparing, criticizing, being judgmental? It's like some sort of operating system that they've got going on in their mind, which is creating the problem.
It's a little bit more complicated because you're right, they are CCJing themselves and they will CCJ others, but they do not want other people to CCJ them. So here's the complication. So I'll go over it again. They're quite happy to criticize, compare, or be judgmental about themselves. They will quickly compare and criticize and be judgmental about other people. But what they're trying to do is to make sure that no one does it to them. They don't like it. So they fall into this really complicated, that hopefully we can sort out today, this trap of going round of criticizing themselves first before somebody else does, but then not wanting other people to criticize them.
Oh, David, it is complicated
Really
because
complicated.
I'm kind of thinking, a lot of people would just say, I don't even need someone to tell me I'm no good because I already know I am.
There you
So
go.
it's like an internal thing. It's like I would imagine that is a lot. So people would say, I'm not trying to avoid other people's criticism because I already know the truth of the matter. I am no good. So when you say, oh, well, this is all about me trying to avoid criticism from other people, I don't believe it is. I just believe it's like the truth of the matter is I'm no good. I've always been no good. And when I do compare myself to other people, it just kind of proves the point.
Well, no, it's a little bit more complicated than that, Alex, because what they're doing, they're criticizing themselves negatively or being judgmental against themselves negatively as like future proofing. It's like taking a vaccine. They're criticizing themselves very harshly, almost ridiculously harshly, hoping that if somebody else criticizes them, then they won't be so bad. It won't be so bad as what they've done it to themselves. So this is why it gets very complicated. And as you said in your opening, this becomes a kind of a pattern, a way of thinking, and they get drawn into this, like a vortex, into this negative way of thinking until they cannot and they will not believe or think positively about themselves, because they're sticking their head above the parapet, if you like, and they'll get shut down by others. So this is very much about caring what other people think, say, do, talk about you, and you're putting your power into other people's hands. And this is why we call it CCJ, criticizing, comparing, being judgmental.
So what I'm hearing you say here, David, it's almost like a self-protection mechanism.
Yes.
But actually, it's destroying us.
Yes, that's how the part of the mind that I would call the inner child sees it, exactly as you've just explained it. It's like getting yourself prepared for anything coming down the railway track that you don't like, being criticized. So what the mind is saying, if I do it to myself really badly, then if anybody else does it, then it won't be so bad for me. I'll be able to cope with it. I'll be able to manage it. It won't hurt so much. So you see, when you start to take it apart, at the beginning it's very complicated, and it is, but once you start to pull the pieces out and deconstruct it, it absolutely falls into the inner child way of thinking, that they want to be slightly superior. They want to be special. They want to be highly thought of. They don't want to be criticized. They don't want to fail. They want to be perfect. They don't want other people to find their fault. So they set up this very complicated maze of confusion. You said a couple of weeks ago, it's like a game. And although I know a lot of my clients are really suffering with this, but it is like a game. It's like the inner child is playing a game. And then the problem comes after many months, years, decades, the game becomes their identity. And this becomes so familiar. This way of thinking, this negative way of thinking becomes so familiar that they can't break out of their own game.
David, I think a lot of people listening to this would really resist that concept that you've just said, that somehow people suffering from inferiority complex, it's because they actually want to be better than other people. Yes. They want to be higher. They want to be on a pedestal. Because I would imagine most people say, no, I just want to be okay. I just don't want to be falling behind. I just want to be like other people. That would be the appeal that I think they would make to you. It's not about me and my huge ego wanting to be celebrated. But what would you say, having worked with people on this, what is the actual truth?
I would say the actual truth is they want to be celebrated. They want everybody else to hold them in high esteem. They want to get the strokes and the approval and the validation from other people. They never want anybody to think negatively about them. They never want to start a project and get it wrong and then somebody criticize them. And so they're working on this very, very tight line, which can't be successful. And as you quite rightly say, is that instead of doing that, they already have everything they need. What is it they're playing this game about? Why can't somebody criticize you? Why can't somebody say, I disagree with you? Why can't somebody have a different opinion? Why can't somebody look at something that you've done and don't like it? What is it that their opinion, their point of view, what they're saying is so important to you? This is the key. Why is it what somebody else thinks, says, do so important to you? And the next question, why are you gauging and looking at your life based on other people, comparing yourself? Oh, look at them. Oh, they've got a bigger house, a better car. They've got a better job. They're earning more money than me. Always looking outside of yourself. I love the Taoist teaching on this. Why are you walking in other people's footprints? Why don't you walk in your own footprints? There's the key. Because what other people say is far more important.
David, the why is, I think it's because this system, this desire for proving ourselves to be special, started in childhood. It started in childhood because of the systems the family systems we were brought up in. And then in a way, as we've become adults, society and consumerism and it's almost taken over this need to compare and to always believe that we're somehow lacking and that we need to do something or get something or be something more in order to be good enough or in order to be on that pedestal and then feel like we can breathe out and relax.
That's exactly right, Alex. But if you listen to what you just said, it's always about the explanation you've just done. It's about the person striving, having, like, I often think about it when I work with my clients. It's like that cartoon with a donkey and a carrot just dangling outside, and they're trying to reach the carrot. They're always striving for something. What is it they're striving for? Now, they will say validation, approval, being liked, being needed, being thought of this or thought of that. But all the time when you do that, what you're doing is you're putting your power outside of yourself. And so again, on this week, what we're talking about is what I call Shen, your innate value and worth. How can you strive extensively outside of yourself for something that you already have? You already have value and worth, and you're absolutely right. Society's value and worth may be different, but this is not what we're talking about, because if you're chasing society's value and worth, you'll always fail. You're going down like an ever-decreasing plug hole, because society's values and worth constantly changing. And so this is why we call it life lessons. You have to step back and look at really what is the most important for you. What is the most, and if you're unsure and you complicate it, if you're a parent, ask yourself, what would you teach your physical child? Would you teach them, well, your value and your worth depends on what other people think about you. And if they change, well, you'll change. And you have to please them. And this is very important. Well, I really hope you wouldn't. But as we're talking about in this teaching, this is what you're telling yourself. You're putting your own value and worth out to other people. And then, like a headless chicken, you're chasing around, trying to get them to validate you. Look at the word validate, give you value. Well, haven't you already got value? That's the key for you. Have you got innate value? As I say on many videos, let me repeat, when you were born, when you came into this world, when you come out of your mother, did someone have to give you a spoonful of value before you're worthy? This is a wrong thinking, like your physical child. You wouldn't give birth to a physical child and says, quick, can somebody give them some value and worth? But if you're looking outside of yourself, this is exactly what Alex is talking about, this trick you fall into, this mistaken thinking. And you're right, society, consumerism builds on this, telling you you need a better car, you need a better house, you need a better job, you've got to change your clothes, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to look a certain size, a certain weight, a certain hair color. And what they're trying to do is to encourage you to say that value and worth does lie outside of you, and you have to earn it. You have to go after it. And this is the life lesson, is this cannot be true. You are a spiritual being. You already have Shen. You should be following your unique individual path. You should be living your life. You should be accountable and take responsibility. It lies with you. And if you fall into the CCJ trap, then it's like water going down a plug hole.
Do you think, David, for a lot of people, they are operating off the value system that was demonstrated to them or given to them by their parents? So, for example, a lot of people would listen to what you've just said. That, yeah, okay, that makes sense. However, but when I was growing up, and even now, my parents, my father, my mother compared me to my brothers or sisters, and that I was always the one who was underachieving. I was the one that was always good for nothing. They either told me that indirectly or directly. And this has been like a dark shadow over my life because I've bought into that. That's their value judgment, but I've let it affect me now all my life, and it's almost like it's ingrained in me. What can I do about it?
If you listen to what you said, Alex, you said the first of all was correct. I've bought into that. Listen to what Alex says. I've bought into my parents' belief system. And if that's you, it's not even your belief system. You've bought into it. Now you've adopted someone else's belief system. Think about this. This is really important. Is this belief even your belief? Or as Alex has just said, and I agree with you, not everyone, but the majority of my clients have adopted other people's belief system as their own. And this is why this is so important, because if you fall into this CCJ trap, then that's what you're doing. You're comparing, you're taking on other people's belief systems, you're owning it as yours. But where's your accountability for what you believe? And again, many of my clients, when I say to them, would you teach this to your physical child? They laugh. They say, of course I wouldn't. It's ridiculous. Of course I wouldn't teach my child. Well, look at your friends, your next door neighbor, people at school, and copy their value. Of course I wouldn't. But then the question is, why are you doing it? And as you quite rightly said, they'll go, oh, well, it's ingrained. It's not ingrained. A belief system is just that. A belief system, what you believe, and you can change your belief. I do not buy into this idea of it's ingrained, it's so deep, it's a habit, it's familiar. These are all statements of you not being responsible for what you believe and why you believe it. I can't make it more simple than that. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? And if you want what I call the Shen test, then just ask yourself this. Would I teach this to my physical child? Would I teach what I'm saying to myself to my physical child? And if the answer is no, you've just disproved yourself, because now you can't believe it because you teach your physical child something completely different.
So you're talking about what you call a dual belief system.
Absolutely.
So double standards.
Double standards.
But, so many people, David, ask us, oh, well, how do I change my belief? I've understood, I've identified I'm operating a dual belief system, or I'm operating on a belief which is completely unhealthy and unhelpful and stagnating my life. I've perhaps adopted my father's belief system, and he adopted his beliefs from his father, and neither of them were kind of balanced or had an appropriate worldview. I want to have my own truthful worldview. How do I change this computer programming of my mind?
Well, you've answered it yourself. That's a great question. That's a great question. How do I change my belief system? If I operate a dual belief system, if I tell my physical child one thing, which I know to be right, but then tell myself something else, how do I change it? And you said the pathway, oh my goodness, how many times have I said this? Take a breath now. Drop your shoulders. The pathway to your Shen, to your worth, to your value is truth, honesty, integrity. In your self-talk, what you say to yourself that no one else listens to, is that truthful? Is that honest? Does that integrity? Well, if you've got a dual belief system, then you have no integrity for yourself, because the opposite of integrity is being hypocritical. And that's what a dual belief system is, being hypocritical. So again, it comes down to you being accountable for you. Not looking outside, not blaming other people, not blaming your childhood, not blaming what they said, what they didn't say, what they couldn't do, their poor parenting. It's about you now. What do you believe? And if you want a very quick breakthrough, what you would say to your physical child should be exactly the same as what you say in your self-talk. And only you know this self-talk. Only you know this little voice is going on in your head. But that's your voice. And that's you. And you are responsible for that. And no one else will change that. It's how much you value truth. It's how much you value honesty, and it's how much you value your integrity. So at the end of the day, it's Shen, how much you value and put your own self-worth. It's nobody else can give you that self-worth.
And for a lot of people, David, listen to this, they may be kind of completely unfamiliar or unappreciative of their Shen, their value, that there is this other huge, fantastic part of them that exists, that cannot be touched, cannot be changed, belongs to them, does not have to be earned, can't be taken away. And that is the value of them. All the other stuff, all the other kind of achievements, successes, milestones in our life, they're part of our journey. They're not to be dismissed, but they don't represent our value. But if we start to, I guess, appreciate the enormity and the wonder of our Shen, our higher self, this thing that makes us unique, then we can step into our power, and that all the other things become so less important. We're still operating in a normal society. We're not dropping out, flunking out, but it's like it doesn't become our main driver. It doesn't become our main identity. Our Shen, and getting to know our Shen and connecting with our Shen and checking in with our Shen, our higher self, is the most important relationship we have.
Absolutely, Alex. I couldn't disagree with everything you've just said there. I think that's absolutely right. That your Shen is not a commodity. Other people do not give you more Shen or top up your Shen or take Shen away from you. Again, using my Shen test. If your physical child come home from school and said to you, "Mummy, Daddy, my best friend says I'm useless," you wouldn't say to them, "Oh, well, if your best friend says you're useless, you must be useless." This is ridiculous. But you say this to yourself. There's what you've got to clear up. That's what this life lesson is about. You've got to cut through all of the confusion, because the part of your mind that I call the inner child thrives on confusion, on over-talking, confusing, saying the wrong things. And my job, I believe, is to cut through all of this and get to the facts. You either believe that human beings have intrinsic, have innate value and worth, or they don't. Now, if you say, "No, they don't, David," of course, then the next question is very easy. And you can ask yourself, well, where do they get it from then? Oh, well, they get it from their parents. Oh, okay. Well, where do the parents get it from? Well, they get it from there. Well, this is a nonsense. You don't get given a spoonful of value as when you're born and say, well, there you are. That's you topped up for all your life now. This is wrong thinking. You are a spiritual, divine human being. This is not something that's debatable, that can be given to you, taken away from you, reduced, added up, topped up by what other people say or what other people think. Or if you get a project wrong, or if you don't quite get 10 out of 10 on an exam, that's not affecting your value. That may mean you need to work harder on the test, but that's not your innate value. And that's the real life lesson here. And this is what you've got to think about you. This starts with you. And even deeper, this starts with your self-talk, what you say to yourself, because that's what we're trying to get at. And I can't get into your head. I can only say these things to try and clarify the fog and the confusion and the emotions you get yourself dragged into, and just clarify your thinking. And the question is, do you have innate value and worth as a human being? And that's your question. And does that apply to your physical child? Do they have innate value and worth, or do you have to give it to them? Or can you take it away from them? And this really is a question about this comparing, criticizing, and being judgmental. It never works. It cannot be works, because you're moving yourself, as Alex said, into society. And society will change their values like a flick of a coin. 1 year something is really valuable, the next year it's not. And you'll be living like a leaf blowing is in the wind, looking at what people think, do, say about you. And that's not a good place for you to ground yourself in.
Wonderful, David. So really the message is being super, super vigilant with our self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than it just operating in the background and kind of polluting our thoughts and our actions and our choices, to monitor it, to question it, to do this Shen test, this truth test on it every single time. And this will eliminate the CCJ that is happening all the time, this comparing, criticizing, being judgmental of ourselves and other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we do that on ourselves or anyone else, it's like we're buying into the system.
It is. It's almost like you're contaminating your own thought process. You are kind of jumping into a muddy stream and getting even more confused. And that's what the inner child part of your mind really thrives on, that confusion. And we're trying to step back and say, no, this is not true. I am in control. I have got innate value. I'm not perfect. I will make mistakes. But being part of a human being is you learn from your mistakes. As we say on our model, you get back on the bike and start pedaling even harder.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Well, I will put links in the show notes to long form teaching that we have done on CCJ and some inner child work, and also our Shen video playlist, so you can understand and build that relationship with your Shen and your higher self much, much stronger. I really, really hope you have enjoyed the teaching. Please do let us know and perhaps share it with someone else who you think may also benefit. David works every week with clients all over the world by a Zoom video call on exactly these sorts of issues. If you'd like to learn more about David's consultations, please also check out the show notes where I will put a link. And finally, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new teachings every week and we would love to share your journey with you. Bye-bye.